Chicago Reader and the Chicago Sun-Times, and he wrote the introduction to the Wendell Smith Reader, and he also helped me get moving forward on my short Rap Dixon biography. So I'm happy to introduce him, and it's always good to see him. It's all yours, Mike.
Well, Ted and Sean, thank you so much for the invitation. And Ted, thank you so much for the kind introduction. This presentation is entitled Pittsburgh and the Rise of Wendell Smith. Many of us know that the late Wendell Smith was a noteworthy journalist. I will discuss his life and work, but I want to focus on how Smith began his evolution into a media icon while he worked at the Pittsburgh Courier. It was his first job in journalism. As part of the presentation, I will discuss how Wendell Smith's coverage of Josh Gibson became part of that evolution. Before I start, again, I'd like to thank the Josh Gibson Foundation for the invitation to give this talk. I've been a huge fan of Josh Gibson for decades. What you see now, I just clicked on a picture, a baseball card of Josh Gibson that was autographed by Josh Gibson Jr. for me at the first Lloyd Conference back in 1998. This second picture is Ted Double Duty Radcliffe, another historical figure, tagging Josh Gibson at the 1944 East-West All-Star game. Double Duty was kind enough to sign this for me, and this took place at an event 20 years ago in Chicago. As far as I'm concerned, anybody who shows up for these activities is special, but I want to mention a few people. Keandra Anderson is on this call, and she wrote a children's book entitled Wendell Smith, the Man Who Had a Plan. So thank you for joining us, Miss Anderson. Wayne Dawkins is a journalism professor who wrote a dual biography of Sam Lacey and Wendell Smith. And that dual biography will be published by Routledge this summer. Another person should be joining this call, may join this call. His name is Michael Scott Pfeiffer, and he's the editor of the Wendell Smith Reader. And I also wanted to mention another relative of Wendell Smith who was on this seminar as well. Her name is Carol Hill. Some of you may have seen her in Detroit during the Malloy Conference. She was kind enough to give me permission to use a couple of family photographs. So for some people who may not be familiar with Josh Gibson, yeah, he was a star catcher who played for the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords during the 1930s and 1940s. His 6'1" height and 200 pounds of muscle enabled him to excel on both defense and offense. Josh Gibson may have hit close to 800 home runs during his career. He died at the young age of 35 in 1947. In 1972, he was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and he recently made news because of the inclusion of Negro League stats with the Major League statistics. So he's getting even more recognition. This is the what's known as the classic photo of Wendell Smith. This was taken while he was working at WGN television here in Chicago. Let's briefly recap Smith's life and career. His full name was John Wendell Smith. He was born in Detroit in 1914, and he died in Chicago in 1972. He graduated from Southeastern High School and West Virginia State College. He played for the college's baseball and basketball teams. He married twice. He had one son. Following his graduation from college, he joined the Pittsburgh Courier. He later worked at the Chicago Herald American and WGN Television. He's best known for his campaign to integrate Major League Baseball while he worked at the Courier. He recommended Jackie Robinson to the Brooklyn Dodgers and helped him adjust to life in the major leagues. After Smith began work in Chicago, he used his experience in Pittsburgh to achieve even more success. Among other achievements, he became the first Black sports writer to work for a daily newspaper. He earned recognition as a top boxing writer, and he helped desegregate spring training housing accommodations by writing articles about the issue. Since his death, he has received many posthumous awards. One is the J.G. Taylor Spink Award given by the Baseball Writers Association of America. The honorees are displayed in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's start with Wendell Smith's parents. They greatly influenced him. His father was John Henry Smith, and his mother was Lena Gertrude Smith. Both parents were very friendly and kind people. Carol Hill told me that John Henry Smith was quite a gentleman. He served as head steward at the Yondotego Club, an exclusive social organization for millionaires. He also worked as a chef for Henry Ford, the founder of the Ford Motor Company. In his spare time, he participated in social activities organized by the Nakarima Club. The Nakarima Club is a Black social organization. The club's name is American spelled backwards. The group chose its name to emphasize that its members were proud to be Americans. Lena Gertrude Smith, known as Aunt Gert to relatives, was born to a socially prominent Black family in the Motor City. Lena Gertrude Smith was a homemaker, and she also worked with 3 church-based volunteer groups. What we see here is a picture of Wendell Smith and his parents that was published in the newspaper, and it marked the 30th anniversary of their marriage. You can see they were a very happy couple, very handsome, and you can tell by the style of dress, quite affluent. I want to thank Carol Hill for letting me use this picture. This is another picture that was from Carol Smith. It shows the Smith family in a gathering looks like sometime in the late 1920s. Wendell Smith is in the bottom of the picture on the right-hand side. Now, this is a close-up of Wendell Smith from that same picture. Smith's parents' values of kindness and national pride helped shape Wendell Smith's character. He gained much affection for the kindness he displayed toward coworkers, both male and female. He also earned respect for his modest personality and the class he exhibited toward people he interviewed. His persona was notable in a profession that included writers who were not so nice. The issue of national pride was reflected in Smith's advocacy for Black athletes. Part of his motivation to advocate for Black athletes was rooted in his desire for the United States to live up to the values of equality. For example, Smith emphasized that Jackie Robinson's entry into Major League Baseball was an American story. So let's get back to Smith and his childhood. He lived in a predominantly white neighborhood located in the east side of Detroit, and he attended Southeastern High School, which was also predominantly white. He pitched during sandlot baseball games with youth in his neighborhood, including future Major League catcher Mike Tresh. Mike Tresh spent 12 years in the major leagues playing for the Chicago White Sox and the Cleveland Indians. Smith also participated in informal sparring matches with neighbors in his garage. Smith also saw Negro League baseball in Detroit. A Negro National League squad known as the Detroit Stars achieved some success in the city. There is no doubt that Smith remembered the Stars when he covered Negro League baseball for the Pittsburgh Courier. In addition, Smith played basketball at Detroit's Central Community Center. And during his time at the center, he met another Black future up-and-comer, future heavyweight boxing champion Joe Louis. Smith wrote many pieces about Louis during his career. Smith also experienced some discrimination. He was not allowed to join the sports teams when he attended predominantly white Southeastern High School. Smith was kicked off an American Legion baseball team due to his race. Henry Ford helped Smith get back on the team. Smith suffered a crushing blow as a teenager. He pitched as his team won an American Legion baseball championship game. After the game, Tiger Scott Wish Egan told Smith he could not sign him because he was black. Egan instead signed the losing pitcher, Ed Mike Tresh, Smith's teammate. Smith went home and cried. Years later, he told a sports writer that the rejection marked the first time he understood baseball had a color line. The incident helped motivate Wendell Smith to advocate for black athletes. This is a picture of Wendell Smith taken from his high school yearbook. Smith left home for West Virginia State College in 1933. He studied physical education. He played for the school's baseball and basketball teams. He wrote a sports column for the student newspaper, and he publicized the school's football team. He also met Pittsburgh Courier sports writers Chester Washington and Bill Nunn Sr. when they covered football games at the school. He graduated in 1937. This picture is a copy of a sports column that Wendell Smith wrote for the student newspaper. You could tell that he used his the first initial J, and he also used the term Simon Legree. So going by the writing standards of the period, Simon Legree was a term that people used when they really wanted to put down somebody. Now, some of you may remember that Simon Legree was the name of the infamous character from the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. This is a photograph of Wendell Smith with his basketball team. You can tell he's a very handsome man, very athletic. He eventually grew to a height of 6 feet and 1 inch. This is a copy of the masthead from the Pittsburgh Courier from 1937. And this is the year that Wendell Smith joined the Pittsburgh Courier. Wendell Smith, he joined the Pittsburgh Courier in 1937, and over the next 10 years, he evolved from a rookie reporter to a savvy media figure. The Courier was incorporated in 1910, and it crusaded on behalf of African Americans. Along with news, it provided coverage of society, entertainment, and sports. It advocated for improvements in housing, health, and education, and sought to empower Blacks politically. To build circulation, the Courier published both national and local editions. During the 1940s, the Courier published both national and local editions in Chicago, New York, and other cities that had large Black populations. The sports coverage was especially important to Pittsburgh's Black residents. Two of the Negro League's greatest teams, the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the Homestead Grays, were based in Pittsburgh. A Pittsburgh writer, Rob Ruck, wrote about the importance of the city's sports scene in the book Sandlot Seasons. Rob Ruck wrote, in the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s, sport offered Black Pittsburgh a cultural counterpoint to the collective lot, one that promoted internal cohesion and brought together both the Pittsburgh-born residents and the Southern migrants in the context of a changing Black consciousness. Moreover, sport helped the scattered Black Pittsburgh community to gain a sense of itself as part of a national Black community. 1937 was an especially good year for Smith to join the Courier. That year, its circulation briefly rose to 250,000, earning status as the nation's Black weekly newspaper. It's nice to start out on top. Smith joined the Courier in 1937, and he worked very hard at the paper as Chester Nunn and Bill Nunn Sr. trained him. Chester Washington in particular served as an effective mentor. At the time, Chester Washington was the sports editor of the paper. Chester Washington was a fast typist who had covered Joe Louis. And in addition, Washington wrote a series of articles about the integration of Major League Baseball for the Courier. So Smith also developed into a fast typist, and he learned the business from the ground up by writing photo captions and learning how to do page layouts. By 1938, he was promoted to assistant sports editor. Smith proved he could handle other assignments besides sports. In 1940, the paper promoted him to city editor. And furthermore, in 1941, he was named the sports editor. This is a picture of Chester Washington. He later left Pittsburgh and moved to Los Angeles and has founded his own newspaper and ended up becoming a millionaire. This is a picture of Wendell Smith with his first wife, Sarah Smith, and their son, John Wendell Smith Jr. Wendell Smith and his first wife met at West Virginia State College. She majored in biology and minored in music. She was a singer, and she later became a songwriter and a manager of other singers. She gave birth to John Wendell Smith Jr. in 1940. When Wendell Smith was promoted to sports editor, the Courier made Chester Washington an assistant business manager, and that's where he started to gain further knowledge of the industry. So during Wendell Smith's time at the Courier, he began to build a solid reputation as a sports writer. He covered college basketball, college football, boxing, and Negro League baseball. And as the years progressed, Wendell Smith developed a wide range as a writer. He became an expert interviewer who could coax information from people. He was a solid gatherer of facts. In his columns, he was often a straight shooter who provided strong insights for readers. His writing could be angry and brutally honest, but he could also write pleasant slice-of-life stories and engaging profiles of sports figures. In light of the recent news about the statistics of Negro League players being merged with the statistics of Major League players, there is a side note about Smith's career worth mentioning. He bid for the job of compiling statistics for the Negro National League. The league, however, chose the Elias Company, which was a controversial decision. This picture is a picture of Wendell Smith hanging out at the Pittsburgh Courier office with Joe Louis, who's kneeling, and Pittsburgh boxer Billy Conn. Some of you may remember that Billy Conn nearly defeated Joe Louis in a heavyweight championship match. At the Courier, Wendell Smith campaigned for the integration of Major League Baseball. He followed in Chester Washington's footsteps. Chester Washington had written about the integration of Major League Baseball back in 1933. In May 1938, Smith entered the fight with his column A Strange Tribe, which criticized blacks for supporting Major League Baseball when it barred black players. Smith wrote, "They are real troopers, these guys who risk their money and devote their lives to Negro baseball. We black folk offer no encouragement and don't seem to care if they make a go of it or not. We literally ignore them completely. With our noses held high and our hands deep in our pockets, squeezing the same dollar that we hand out to the white players, we walk past their ballparks and go to the Major League game. Nuts. That's what we are, just plain nuts." That's an example of Wendell Smith's anger. The following year, Smith made a significant advance in his crusade. He surveyed Major League players about their attitude toward black players. He wanted to disprove the idea that the players opposed blacks in the majors. He talked to 40 players and 8 managers at the Pittsburgh Pirates Forbes Field and at the Shenley Hotel. Most of the interviewees said they did not oppose integration. In 1943, he accompanied a group of leaders from black newspapers, along with actor Paul Robeson, when they met with Major League Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis and other baseball officials to present a case for integration. The meeting took place in New York City. The group included Ira Lewis from the Courier, John Senstack from the Chicago Defender, and Howard Murphy from the Afro-American. Landis never followed up with the group after the meeting. In April 1945, Smith took Jackie Robinson, Sam Jethro, and Marvin Williams to what turned out to be a sham tryout with the Boston Red Sox. On the way back to Pittsburgh, Smith visited the Brooklyn Dodgers offices. There, he attended a press conference during which Branch Rickey announced the formation of a Black Baseball League. After the press conference, Rickey asked Smith if any of the players he took to Boston could succeed in Major League Baseball. Smith picked Robinson. The Dodgers, as we all know, eventually signed Robinson to minor league and major league contracts, making him the first Black major league player in the modern era. Smith traveled with him in 1946 and 1947. As part of Smith's coverage of Negro League baseball, Smith often wrote about Josh Gibson. His coverage was cited in Mark Rybowski's biography of Gibson, and I will discuss Mr. Rybowski later in this presentation. Gibson was more than a star player as far as Smith was concerned. For Smith, Gibson became a key piece of evidence in Smith's advocacy for the integration of Major League Baseball. What we see now is a copy of Smith's column that he wrote about Josh Gibson's baseball team, the Homestead Grays. This column appeared in 1938, and Smith called the Homestead Grays the New Gas House Gang. Gibson was one of the Grays. Now let's provide some background. The Gas House Gang was the nickname given to the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team that dominated the National League from the late 1920s to the early 1930s. The Cardinals won multiple National League pennants and World Series titles during that period. The name Gas House Gang came from the team's generally shabby appearance and rough and tumble tactics. Smith called the Homestead Grays the New Gas House Gang. He wrote, the Gas House Gang of Negro baseball are the same type of rough and tumble bunch that the Cardinals were in their heyday. Josh Gibson, Buck Leonard, and Ray Brown are the leaders of this new Gas House Gang. Not only are the Grays champions of Negro baseball, but they are a cocky bunch of ball players. They don't believe that any team can beat them. In short, Smith made a subtle case for the entry of blacks into Major League Baseball. If Gibson and the Grays were comparable to a dominant Major League team, surely the Grays were good enough for the majors. In 1942, Smith took direct action on behalf of Gibson. He selected Gibson, Willie Wells, Sam Bankhead, and Leon Day for a prospective tryout with the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates owner, William Binswanger, asked Smith to pick the players. The tryout never materialized, but the situation provided proof of Smith's advancement in journalism. His selection to pick the players further proves that Smith had earned respect as a journalist. Smith also advocated for Josh Gibson when Josh Gibson died in 1947. In a eulogy, he argued Gibson should have played in the major leagues. He wrote, "Gibson was definitely of major league quality. There is no doubt that he would have been in the big leagues had it not been for the long and unjust ban against Negroes in organized baseball." This is a picture of Wendell Smith with his second wife, Wyanella. He joined the Chicago Herald American in 1947 and began to split his time between Chicago and Pittsburgh. By the early 1950s, Smith left his position as sports editor of the Courier and worked full-time in Chicago. When Smith traveled to Chicago, he settled in the city with his second wife, Wyanella Smith. They met because of Wendell Smith's gentlemanly nature. He helped her after she slipped in the snow while they were walking to work at the Pittsburgh Courier. Wyanella Smith worked at the Courier before the couple moved to Chicago. Afterwards, she worked for the Harlem Globetrotters and the City of Chicago's Department of Aging. That's a side note about Wyanella Smith that's worth mentioning. As we all know, Jackie Robinson debuted with the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15th, 1947. Wendell Smith was working for the paper, transmitting stories back to the home office in Pittsburgh while he covered the game. Interestingly enough, Wyanella Smith was one of the employees at the Pittsburgh Courier who was retyping his stories for the paper. So While in Chicago, Smith used his experience at the Courier to achieve more success. When he started work at the Chicago Herald-American in 1947, he became the first Black sports writer to work for a daily newspaper. He spent 16 years at the paper. And during his time there, he campaigned for the integration of spring training accommodations. He used the same persistence during that campaign that he demonstrated when he campaigned for the integration of Major League Baseball. Smith wrote the first book about Robinson in 1948. That book was entitled Jackie Robinson, My Own Story. Wendell Smith became the second Black member of the Baseball Writers Association of America. He also continued as one of the leading boxing writers in the country. If there was a big match involving Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, or Ezra Charles, Wendell Smith was there. He was elected president of Chicago Boxing Writers in the early 1950s. He also established another first for Black sports writers when he provided radio commentary for the Sugar Ray Robinson Carmen Basilio middleweight championship boxing match in 1958. This is the cover of one of the covers for Jackie Robinson's for the first book on Jackie Robinson, which was written by Wendell Smith. In addition, Wendell Smith became one of the first Black sports writers to work as a beat writer for a Major League Baseball team. He covered the Chicago White Sox during the late 1950s and early 1960s. He had even more success in Chicago. During the 1960s, he became one of the first Blacks to work for a television news show in Chicago. He joined WBBN Television in 1963. He switched to WGN Television in 1964. When WGN hired him, he spent half his time covering news and half his time covering sports. His experience running the Pittsburgh Courier's city news department came in handy. He covered major news stories like the federal trial of Teamster boss Jimmy Hoffa and the infamous Richard Speck murder case. Richard Speck, as some of you may know, killed 8 student nurses in 1966. He interviewed Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley for a documentary about Daley's first 10 years in office. Smith also produced a documentary about the economic progress of Blacks in Chicago. In 1967, he served as sports anchor for WGN's Nightly News. He also served as a panelist for WGN's public affairs show, People to People. He worked at WGN during the final 8 years of his life. Wendell Smith also performed volunteer work. In one of his activities, he served as a board member of a community center that served underprivileged children on Chicago's South Side. Therefore, he lived the values of the Josh Gibson Foundation. In addition, he wrote a sports column for the Chicago Sun-Times between 1969 and 1972. And he also was elected the first Black president of the Chicago Press Club in 1972. I should mention that the last column he wrote for the Sun-Times was a tribute to Jackie Robinson after Jackie Robinson passed away in 1972. Sadly, Wendell Smith died in Chicago in 1972, 1 month after Jackie Robinson. Right now, I'm showing a picture of an advertisement from the TV guide from 1969. You can see Wendell Smith was promoted by WGN Television. This is a picture of Wendell Smith interviewing Cardinals pitcher Bob Gibson sometime in the late 1960s. This is a picture probably taken on the same day of Wendell Smith interviewing the Cardinals manager, Red Schoendienst, also sometime in the late 1960s. This is a picture of Wendell Smith interviewing Dodgers manager Walter Alston during that same period. I like the suit jacket that Wendell Smith wore. And as usual, he wore his trademark fedora as well. Let's see. Although Smith had great success in Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Josh Gibson were never far from his mind. He wrote sports columns for the Courier until 1967. Smith wrote a piece about Josh Gibson in 1971 for Tuesday at Home, which was a magazine supplement for newspapers. Smith also served on the committee that chose Josh Gibson for induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972. This is a copy of the Josh Gibson article, and this was this photograph was displayed in the newspaper after Josh Gibson was elected for to the Hall of Fame. Despite Wendell Smith's successes, he had critics. One was author Mark Ribowski, and I mentioned him earlier in the presentation. Ribowski criticized Smith in two different books. Ribowski argued Smith helped destroy Negro League baseball by covering blacks entering the majors and limiting coverage of the Negro Leagues. Ribowski appears to have a point. Smith had once criticized blacks who attended Major League games instead of Negro League games. After Jackie Robinson joined the Brooklyn Dodgers, Smith bragged about the sharp increase in attendance at Major League games. In Smith's defense, he was covering the integration of Major League Baseball, which was a major sports story. In addition, Smith reminded readers to continue to support Black baseball. He asked the Dodgers to sponsor a Black baseball team, and he continued to cover the Negro League's East-West All-Star game. In conclusion, Wendell Smith acknowledged Pittsburgh's influence on his career. During the Pittsburgh Courier's 50th anniversary celebration, he thanked the paper's previous sports editors for blazing a trail for his own career and a column for the paper. This photograph is a copy of that column. Smith wrote, "This has been a life of splendor and excitement. Baseball training camps, fight camps, the Olympics, and other arenas of excitement for the younger ones that the older ones, by their dedication and perseverance, made possible. For those who sit in the press box at the World Series or ringside at the big fights or in typewriter row at similar classics should remember that they are there because of the ceaseless campaigns waged by those before them, particularly by those representing this paper." Thank you. Before I take questions, I should mention some resources for people who want to learn even more about Wendell Smith. The National Baseball Hall of Fame has a website, has web pages dedicated to Smith, and people can find them at the following address. And if they're interested, they can also contact me. I'm sorry, this is the website address. Smith was included in two classic books. One was called No Cheering in the Press Box, and the other book was called Black Writers, Black Baseball. No Cheering in the Press Box is a collection of interviews of sports writers who worked during the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. And finally, Black Writers, Black Baseball is a collection of Negro League articles by writers who worked for Black newspapers. And that includes Wendell Smith, Chester Washington, and Sam Lacey. Thank you.
Very good, Michael. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Got a couple questions for you, and I hope folks that have other questions for you put them in either the Q&A or the chat room. But let's get you started here with a modern day issue. Wendell Smith was involved in promoting the concept of integrating Major League Baseball. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts of Smith's or of your own on promoting the induction of more Negro Leaguers in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, of course. Wendell Smith, as we all know, was a very strong advocate for Black players. And certainly, Wendell Smith would be, and myself included, would be more than happy to include more Negro League players. Rap Dixon, for example, is certainly a worthy of inclusion in the Hall of Fame. So yeah, I mean, he would be all over that issue.
All right. Thanks for that plug, Mike. I appreciate it. Uh, and let's keep current here. Uh, Same type of question. What what would Smith's or your uh, feelings be on naming the MVP award for Josh Gibson?
Um, I have to be honest with you. I'm still weighing my thoughts and opinions about it because I can see the pros and the cons. As far as Wendell Smith is concerned, yeah, I think he would be all for it. Yeah, but because of his advocacy for Black players.
Mhm. And could you, I hate to put you on the spot, but could you
Go ahead.
elaborate a little bit on the cons?
Well, in the kindest way I could say this, uh, Josh Gibson certainly was capable of playing at the major league level, but he didn't. He was not a major league player, so um, I can see it might be a little awkward to name a major league award after someone who didn't necessarily play in the major leagues. But I can also see the pros as well. You know, the Josh Gibson has been branded in effect a major league player. So in that sense, it is reasonable and possible to name an award after him. So
Mhm.
again, I can see both sides of that issue. So I'm
Okay.
still trying to weigh it. I'm still trying to
Sure.
weigh that stuff.
That, you have an open mind. That's a good thing. We need more of that in this country. Uh, Now, let's take you back to your expertise. Could you talk a little bit about the evolution of the courier and the defender, how the courier comes to equal and perhaps beyond the defender in national influence?
Oh, that's easy. Just to give you a little bit of background, the defender was started a little earlier than the courier, so it had a head start, and so it was and since the defender was based in Chicago, which had a larger Black population than the courier, the defender had more circulation, and the defender is generally credited with helping to encourage Black people to migrate from the south to the north, especially because the Pullman couriers were uh, distributing the defender to cities in the south. On the other hand, the courier was quite aggressive in its advocacy for African Americans, and it helped. That advocacy helped to build circulation and influence for the courier. One of the things I remember about the courier is that the Pittsburgh's Black population was quite a bit smaller than the Black populations of Chicago and New York, for example. So the courier was a bit more aggressive in publishing um, editions in those cities to help build up the circulation. And the courier also uh, it simply had a very strong base of writers. It wasn't just Wendell Smith. It was Chester Washington, Bill Nunn, and these were very talented writers and very strong advocates. The publisher of the Courier as well was Robert Vann, who was a very active political force. So that sort of advocacy helped the Courier to build a great deal of credibility in the Black community. And finally, I should point out, Wendell Smith had recommended Jackie Robinson for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And so in 1947, Wendell Smith and the Pittsburgh Courier had dibs on one of the biggest sports stories of the 20th century. And so in that period, the Courier circulation actually boomed to 350,000 because at the time it had arguably the number one story in the country. So basically, the Pittsburgh Courier's advocacy, very aggressive advocacy, helped to boost its circulation.
All right. Thank you for that. And I want to thank everyone listening because you're really coming through with questions. And let me start with them. Bob Cullen wants to know, first of all, he says, excellent presentation. What would you characterize as Wendell Smith's greatest strength as a journalist?
Oh, it's hard because he had so many. He just had so many outstanding tools. And part of the reason why I mentioned, I'll start with his parents. Part of the reason why I mentioned his upbringing is that his parents really helped develop his character. As I mentioned before, you got people in the journalism field who were quite honestly not very nice. But Wendell Smith was raised with a strong set of social skills. And that helped him as a writer because he was very kind toward people. And because he was very modest, he had this ability to empathize with people, and that enabled him to evolve into an excellent interviewer, especially. He had the work ethic. He certainly had the passion. And he certainly he had the knowledge base. So I mean, he was pretty much the journalism equivalent of a five-tool baseball star.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Tony Lindsay wants to know what was going on with all these false starts, the Boston tryout of Robinson and Williams and Jethro, and the Pittsburgh feint on perhaps trying out those four players. What was going on there?
Oh, Tony's a good friend of mine, and I figured he'd come up with a question like that. It's very simple. It's a good question. There was a lot of media pressure on these sports organizations to integrate. So it's kind of a PR move. The sports the Red Sox and the Pirates sort of played the game where they pretended to care about integration, but really didn't. Now, basically, these tryout situations were in fact PR moves by these organizations to get people off their back. That was especially true in Boston. Part of the reason why the tryout took place in Boston is that like a city council member told the Boston Red Sox that he would try to legislate against their Sunday games if they didn't do a tryout, because at the time the Sunday games were very profitable. So basically, in short, these organizations were doing PR moves.
Okay. Alan Saul wants to know if Wendell Smith coordinated efforts advocating the desegregation of baseball with Lester Rodney.
Oh, that's an outstanding question. Yeah. Actually, I communicated with Lester Rodney before he died, and he actually sent me a letter about his relationship with Wendell Smith. So, very good question. Lester Rodney, as you know, was the sports editor for the Daily Worker. And so, the papers did coordinate by publishing stories by the newspapers. In other words, the Daily Worker published stories from the Courier, and Wendell Smith in turn worked with the Daily Worker as well. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of conflict because Wendell Smith wrote in a column after integration that the Daily Worker had somehow sabotaged the effort. And Lester Rodney wrote me that he was pretty angry about it and had threatened litigation against Wendell Smith. And Wendell Smith stopped writing accusations about the Daily Worker. I will acknowledge, too, that Lester Rodney praised Wendell Smith back in 1997 when Long Island University held a conference about the integration of Major League Baseball.
Okay, here's a question that I'm looking forward to the answer. Do you know, this is from Paul Julian. Do you
Oh, hey,
know of
Paul.
Wendell's? Hi there, Paul, too. Do you know of Wendell's relationship with Mal Good Sr.?
Unfortunately, I know that they knew each other, but that's the
Yeah.
best I could that's the best I could find. But unfortunately, I don't didn't really have much access to Wendell Smith's correspondence. Well, much of his correspondence anyway, so I don't really know much about the relationship other than the fact that they knew each other. I wish I knew more.
Okay. Now let me dig into some of these. Okay. Here's Wayne Dawkins, and
Oh,
he
Professor
wants
Dawkins.
Professor Dawkins, yes. He wants to know about Josh Gibson and any take on the claim said by a character in Bingo Long that Gibson hit a fair ball out of Yankee Stadium.
You know, that's a good question. I saw that movie. My father took me to that movie when I was a kid, and that was my first exposure to Negro League baseball. But I still remember James Earl Jones, Richard Pryor, and Billy D. Williams. It was a fantastic movie. As far as him hitting a ball out of Yankee Stadium, I mean, I read about it, but it's not something I verified. I hope it's true. It certainly is a great it certainly is a great story. But the thing about Josh Gibson I find really striking is that he really was known for his prodigious home runs, along with people like Willie Stargell and Babe Ruth. I mean, they were known for really hitting the ball far. And I think it's so cool that Josh Gibson and Willie Stargell played in the same city.
I thank God.
Yeah.
Uh, Professor Dawkins also comments on one of his favorite professors. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I certainly met Joe Dorenson. Uh, Joe Dorenson, he says, is a Jackie Robinson expert. And Joe attended the second Malloy Conference in Atlantic City in 1999. Uh, just curious, do you know Joe Dorenson?
No, I don't, but I'd like to learn more about him.
Yep.
Anybody who's
Yeah.
an expert on Jackie Robinson is definitely worth knowing.
And who's the favorite professor of Wayne Dawkins? That's another
Yeah.
plus for Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what I can dig out here. Professor Dawkins again astutely compares the big three of the Defender, the Courier, and the Afro American with the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, and the Washington Post. Any comment there?
Oh no, that's definitely. And I have to apologize for not mentioning much more about the Afro American, but yeah, very strong paper. Certainly strong advocates, and I really do have a soft spot for Sam Lacy. Uh, yeah, the truth of the matter, I'm really happy that Sam Lacy is getting more recognition because he was in the thick of the fight too. And I have to mention that Sam Lacy and Wendell Smith were actually good friends. Um, I earlier I mentioned uh, the trip in 1945 to the Boston Red Sox tryout. Uh, Fay Young of the Chicago Defender criticized Wendell Smith for that tryout because he thought that Wendell Smith was doing it for ego purposes. Sam Lacy actually supported uh, that tryout, so I thought that was very interesting. Um, when Sam Lacy, when Wendell Smith wrote the first Jackie Robinson book, he acknowledged that Sam Lacy was one of the people who helped fight for the integration of Major League Baseball. And finally, Sam Lacy wrote a really nice tribute to Wendell Smith after Wendell Smith passed away. He talked about their relationship, and it was just very detail oriented and very, very empathetic. But
Okay. I'm sorry. Did I step on your line here, Michael?
no, I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry. Now, yeah, I was just going to compliment Professor Dawkins on that question. Yeah, I mean, you can't call those three black newspapers the big three.
Yeah. Okay. Jason Swartz. Good, great stuff, Michael.
Thank you.
He wants to know Do you know if Wendell Smith ever focused specifically on the reintegration of the NFL?
Oh, you know what? I'm not sure. I'd have to go back. In general, he was an advocate for integration in all sports, but I'm sorry, I don't know. I didn't really read that much about his relationship to the NFL. No.
uh, James Henderson. Now we're into the Smith family. He wants to know, were you satisfied with Wendell Smith's legacy and story and its accuracy in the movie 42 or in Ken Burns' baseball documentary?
Yes, only because um, there's only so much that a movie director or documentary director can do with a story. I mean, you can only um, uh, produce so much. So yeah, in general, I was satisfied. You know, if I mean, somebody producing a movie or a documentary could include everybody in the production, but then we're talking about a 5 to 10 hour production, so we really can't do that. So that there has to be some sort of limit. But I was simply, in general, I was simply happy that Wendell Smith was mentioned, especially because some of you may have seen the first Jackie Robinson movie that was produced in 1950 and starred Jackie Robinson and Ruby Dee. Wendell Smith was not in that movie. He was not mentioned in that movie at all. So the fact that Wendell Smith's participation in Jackie Robinson's life could be dramatized in a movie like 42, I thought was pretty nice. I thought too that the actor portraying Wendell Smith did a particularly good job.
Okay. Now, having a sister myself, I have to get this question in. James' sister Celeste. In fact, I'm not sure if there's a question here. Uh, she says, "Thank you for the thorough presentation highlighting Uncle Wendell's remarkable life and contributions to baseball. We are always very proud of his accomplishments and stand tall on his shoulders to continue his legacy. Thank you."
Well, I thank Celeste for the kind words and also for attending the Zoom session. Thank you.
Oh, this is an interesting point from Professor Dawkins, and I'd like to hear your comments on it. Uh, Talking about movies, Sam Lacey Jr. makes the claim that, in fact, he was furious that some of the scenes in 42 depicted his father, but were attributed to the Wendell Smith character.
That's unfortunate. You know, you would like movies and documentaries to be 100% accurate. Unfortunately, sometimes a filmmaker, especially, will take a license.
Yeah,
It's not ideal, but I would hope that people more interested in the stories of these people would take the time to do some research, find out for
yeah.
themselves. I'm looking forward to Professor Dawkins's book because I'm really happy that Sam Lacey is getting more recognition. I I know that Sam Lacey did write an autobiography, but that was published some time ago. So it's kind of nice to see a more recent book about him.
And just to put a different spin on that situation, Wendell Smith was a character in the movie, and Sam Lacey obviously had some real meat to offer. And it was, easy to honor Sam by getting the words into the movie instead of on the cutting floor.
Yes, I mean it's something, but yeah, I know that I heard through another friend that Sam Lacey Jr. was concerned about the recognition given to his father, and he's right. But I'm happy that there's another book about him coming out, and I'm happy that there's a journalism award that was that's been given I think it was, I keep forgetting which university or organization done it, but I know that Sam Lacey's name is also on the journalism award. So I think it's nice that he's getting the recognition.
Okay, Michael. Well, I think I'm not the one grading you, but I hope the young lady that is gives you a good one, because I certainly enjoyed this, and good to see you again.
Well, Ted, as always, it's great to see you. Sean, great to see you again. And I deeply appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to discuss Wendell Smith. And I also thank the people who attended the presentation. I know that, especially Wendell Smith's relatives. So I thank everyone.
Well, Mike, well, again, everybody, thank you, Mike. Great presentation. Thank you again for joining us. Everybody who was on today, thank you again for joining us. Our next webinar will be, what, Ted, August? It will be in August. Yep, we'll be in August. So looking forward to seeing you coming back in August. I'll give you the name 1 second for the next one. We're very excited. It's been a great event. Michael, you did a great presentation. I didn't know that much history with Wendell Smith and Josh, but thank you for that.
Oh, yes. Yes, Wendell Smith really, really loved Josh Gibson. And I think, the fact that he served on the Hall of Fame committee that selected him for the Hall of Fame when Wendell Smith was in fact a dying man, I think that's I think that shows the depth of a feeling that Wendell Smith had for Josh Gibson.
Okay, thank you. So our next presentation is August 17th, and it will be Philip Lee. So you can always go to the Josh Gibson Foundation website to register for that one. And again, if there's anybody on there, I think if Paul is still on, Paul, we would like to have you next year. I'm putting that out there now. So if anybody else is on who'll be interested in being a presenter for the 2025 Josh Gibson webinar series, please reach out to myself, Ted Noor, or Tom Kern. And again, we want to thank Mike again for a great presentation. And the rest of you guys have a great weekend. And if you any fathers on here, happy Father's Day. Well, good night. Hey, Mike, stay on for a second, Mike, while everybody log off. You just stay on for Ted and I.
Sure.
Okay.
This
So,
time,
Mike, great presentation. Thank you again, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, Sean, thank you, and Ted for the invitation. And I can talk for hours about the guy, and but it's a joy and a pleasure to share this information with the audience. And like I said, you know what?